Right now, there is some fierce NBA action going on. The Bucks have lost to the Celtics, which makes me very sad because I wanted the Bucks to avenge me Nets. That's number one. So hopefully the Heat can avenge me Nets. And then the Mavs are, right now, they are crushing. Highlights are a must watch because how? They're the number one team. And they're getting smoked on a game 7. I have got to see what's going on, yo, because I did not think that Dallas had it in them to smoke the Sun. What's important here is this chapter, 1049 of One Piece for the review, because there's actually a lot of things in this chapter that I think not many folks caught on that are actually, I think, very important for particularly Kaido, but also Luffy's character as well. I know a lot of folks are expecting Kaido to bounce back from the pits of hell where Luffy is sending him right now. Like it was the 10K drop when Kaido was first introduced to the series. He comes out of that hole, yeah, boom. And then Kid and Hawkins and Apu are shell-shocked to oblivion. But it looks like right now Kaido is, there's a small little panel in the last page where it's a cut to black after his thoughts. Usually that means the fighter is KO'd. So this street fight appears to be done between Luffy and Kaido. But let's get into it step by step, piece by piece. Which of course, if you don't know, we have 3 major parts for this chapter review. The pacing and the chapter structure, the overall character components for this chapter, and finally, the story components for this chapter. If you don't know though, you can watch my full live stream reaction to the chapter on my Cole Requiem channel, links in the box below. First and foremost, the pacing and the structure for this chapter. For this chapter, there are a total of 6 parts. Number 1, the skies above Onigashima, where Luffy and Kaido have their tug-of-war Squid Game style. Number 2 is the Kaido montage flashback. And by the way, real quick, that flashback in of itself is separated into its own sub-segments, but it's all just one general flashback. Number 3 is the cut to the skies above Wano Country, where Momonosuke is continuously trying to make flame clouds, and then the CP0 agent, who some folks are theorizing his name is Morge. He has made a run for it. He is bailing as we speak. Number 4 is the dome performance floor, where the floods are washing everyone. Number 5 is the treasure repository second floor, where Denjiro and Hiri are, with the decapitated on fire Orochi head. And then number 6, we return back to the skies above Wano Country, where Luffy and Kaido is seemingly reached its conclusion. The pacing and structure, I thought, for the most part, was good, but the flashback montage, I think, is lacking, in my opinion, in many respects, because not only is Oda walking on eggshells just to avoid exposing any secrets of rocks, in his mind probably too early, but also the montage itself I thought was very oddly structured. And I can understand folks getting easily confused because within this flashback montage, there are 4 different time cuts. I think actually 5, but I'm gonna say 4, where we start off with a 10-year Kaido, then we cut to a 13-year-old Kaido, then we have a 15-year-old Kaido, then we jump 10 years ahead of that version of Kaido, and then finally from the Baba and that version of Kaido, we jump ahead again to when the mansion is already completed on Onigashima and we see Kaido rallying the troops. The King section at the end of the flashback could actually be another time cut forward, so it could be 5 different time cuts within this flashback, not just 4. That's a lot. So I am not a fan of this flashback at all in terms of the actual structure and pace of it, because we are cutting forward in time so many times within the flashback itself. Like for example, right? Doflamingo does have a lot of flashback material, but it's told through well-paced and structured flashbacks throughout the entirety of Dressrosa through various characters. So in comparison, the flashback material that we get for Kaido does seem pretty lackluster, and it seems pretty forced and pretty rushed. But to be fair, I think it is the only part of the chapter where I felt like the pacing was relatively sloppy. That's number 1 overall, pacing and structure. I'm not necessarily a big fan, but overall I think it is solid. Number 2, you have the character component for this chapter. And for this chapter, we have Kaido first and foremost, absolutely. So we have a lot about Kaido's history and how he came to be. Of course, it's not necessarily the greatest flashback in terms of details, but we can infer a few things based on real-time characteristics of Kaido and past flashbacks in this arc that involve Kaido, like for example, the King flashback during his fight against Zoro. So, number one for the history of Kaido and what we can infer from that. Kaido is always a fighter with a strong body. At the age of 10, he was deemed to be the ultimate soldier in his kingdom. And at 13, the Vodka Kingdom, which by the way is a very creative name because Kaido drinks a lot, yay! Maybe he was actually drinking vodka at the age of 13. Ooh, very dangerous. For a shonen, very heavy stuff. That being said, they didn't know what to do with Kaido anymore, and they exchanged Kaido to the Marines. And in the scans, they say that they can't, quote, handle Kaido, noting to Kaido's great strength at a very young age. And then also we see how later on, at the age of 13 plus, he does destroy prison ships, and he uses the ships as a Golden Corral joint.
Finally, some good food.
So this idea of an extremely freakishly strong kid is in New One Piece because we've seen this with Oden and Big Mom, where at very young ages they were both monsters, and now Kaido joins their ranks. This also goes hand in hand with Kaido's name, which Salmon of Arlong Park did note to on his Twitter page months ago, that Kaido's name actually means strong kid, which also means joy boy. Plus the Marines trying to subjugate Kaido, and then his own kingdom selling him out to have a spot in the Reverie is also similar to Mother Caramel's play with Big Mom in the Big Mom flashback in chapter 867, where Mother Caramel is going to sell Big Mom to the world government because she saw Fleet Admiral potential in Big Mom with just her natural strengths. So we can also, let's say, infer things like Kaido has a natural strong base body, to where even in the first fight against Luffy, when Luffy was attacking Kaido in base form with, let's say, a Kong organ, and Kaido took that, his dragon scales were not active, but his natural base body was always powerful, because we see at 10, he was always powerful. Now, continuing down this road here, number 2 for Kaido, in chapter 985, when Kaido and Big Mom make their claims to get the One Piece, announcing officially their collab, Kaido talked about the world of violence that they would create. And in this chapter, Kaido claims that Luffy cannot change the world and asks him a question about what kind of world will Luffy create. The idea of changing the world is brought to the forefront again because it's not just Wano and its people's fate that rides on this quote final clash between Luffy and Kaido. It's also their ambitions and the ideals of Luffy and Kaido that is also at odds and at stake here. You can also argue the world itself is at stake here, because if Kaido wins, him and Big Mom team up, no one can shut them down, and they usher in the world of violence. But if Luffy wins, the entire trajectory of the world changes here. In the Viz Media translation, Kaido states clearly that what he thinks is equality and freedom can only be decided with war and violence. And I quote, "A world where only war decides a man's true worth." Kaido's dream has actually the same intentions as Luffy's dream when it comes to freedom and equality and things of that nature. After all, Luffy told Rayleigh way back when that being the Pirate King means having the most freedom in the seas. Making a world where his friends can eat as much as they want to is also indicating of freedom and equality. And both Kaido and Luffy want freedom, but in Kaido's freedom, it is predicated on having the power and the might to claim that freedom. Therefore, it is not a universal freedom because the weak cannot be free. That is why Kaido questions why everyone obeys the celestial dragons at the beginning of the flashback, and then he maintains that thought process decades later at the end of the flashback when he talks to the Baba, and then also when he rallies the men in the newly built Onigashima mansion. According to this translation, what Kaido states here is that the nobles are pampered, quote, pampered rulers that don't deserve the quote-unquote ivory thrones of power that they sit on. So Kaido would make the playing field equal for everyone through violence and through war. Survival of the fittest equals equality, and war and anarchy equals freedom. Luffy and Kaido do have some similarities in what they're aiming for, but Kaido's is actually way more warped than Luffy's version of the world. This is also the case with who? Big Mom. Mama. Big Mom wants to create equality through all races and all people, and everyone can eat at the same table equally. And in her case, that also oddly means physically through the same heights, which is why she was so obsessed with gigantification, which Luffy can do full bore. So you can see here, all parties want to an extent equality and freedom, but Big Mom and Kaido are, let's say, bad-natured, and Luffy is good-natured. Now, number 3 here, going down this trend, is that Kaido once again grew up with war and violence always around him. So his life wasn't a comedy, it was an absolute tragedy. Just smile. And he relies on strength first and foremost. Once again, survival of the fittest. Kaido is deemed to be the world's strongest creature. He thinks he has the strongest army, and he dominates part of the New World as one of the strongest pirates. So strength is Kaido's truth in earnest. And you can see this mindset in the crew that he created, where there's some sort of meritocratic system wherein which if you have the skills, anyone who's a flying six can challenge a lead performer and then take that lead performer spot if they're not powerful enough to keep that spot. It's also the reason why he had Luffy's ceiling. He had Whitebeard and Roger, he had Oden, Rocks, and he had Shanks, because he respects the power of these men first and foremost. It's also part of the reason why Kaido was enjoying the fight against Luffy, which he stated in 1036-37, because Luffy was strong and he had acknowledged Luffy's strength. And all these ideas and ideals of strength that make up Kaido's framework, he also applies to the idea of Joy Boy. This is something that your boys talked about a few times on stream and also in videos. For example, in my real Joy Boy versus fake Joy Boy video I did back in March. And now we have more of an idea in this chapter where this could be the case here. I won't say confirmed, but it could be the case here where Kaido really, he might not care that much about the notion of Joy Boy. Rather, it's Joy Boy is just a means to an end for Kaido. And the end being the person that is stronger than himself. That's what he says specifically at the end of this chapter. In Kaido's mind, when it comes to Joy Boy is a title that someone earns when they defeat Kaido. Because Kaido's world is might makes right. And only the legendary Joy Boy, in his mind, could defeat him. That's what he recalls his words to King at the end of the chapter. Once again, King, I think I know who Joy Boy is. He's the man who shows up to beat me in the future. So when Kaido punted Luffy off the island and he said, "You're not Joy Boy," it's because he was too weak. Does he care that much about Joy Boy? I thought at first maybe he did, because there was a good idea out there that I got from the tier 3 stream where, okay, maybe he actually spent all this time in Wano country so he could actually wait for Joy Boy. But in reality, I think actually now, probably not, because his words and his actions seem to be, if you are stronger than me, then you're probably Joy Boy. That's really it. He wasn't necessarily waiting in Wano country specifically for Joy Boy. His main driving goal was still to create this gigantic, most powerful army and usher in the world of violence. Kaido is absolutely not like King the Wildfire, where King the Wildfire is far more intrigued about Joy Boy than he is. If Joy Boy pulled up, he'd fight him, and he needed a full-on life and death battle to prove that with someone, and Luffy gave him that life and death battle through and through. Voila, the kid must be Joy Boy. So you can see how we can infer so many different things about Kaido, including his mindset, now that we've gotten more material for Kaido's past and his history. Also, real quick too, in the Viz Media translation, Big Mom calls Kaido a big rat, which you could infer a lot of different things about that statement. Maybe Kaido actually did something to backstab the Rock's Pirate crew. Maybe it involves his dine and dash, where he ate the devil fruit and then just bounced, and she wanted him to join her crew. Why did he bounce in the first place? Because you can kind of tell here, based on this arc, that Big Mom and Kaido, they do care about each other in some respects. This flashback, though oddly structured, does have substance to it, but of course the issue here is connecting all these dots. Now, moving away from Kaido's history and his past, more in real-time stuff. So in real time, number one, Kaido's flame clouds can be snuffed out by water. Okay, now we know, which makes a degree of sense since they are a fire-related different power. But on the flip side, it does kind of undercut a little bit the idea that Yamato was pushing out there, where Kaido was losing stamina, losing power, and as a result, his flame clouds would disappear. In reality, it didn't really matter because in come the floods of Zunisha to wash away the flame clouds. Okay, whatever. Number two in real time for Kaido is that Kaido's flame dragon torch seemed to be, and this is very important here, Kaido's flame dragon torch seemed to be getting the better of Luffy's monkey god gun. His teeth were really bypassing the Rio Haki protection and closing in, if not already at, Luffy's hardened skin. A detail that I actually missed on the first read-through is on the panel where Kaido says, "What kind of world can you create, Straw Hat?" You can actually see Luffy's fingers getting squished by Kaido's teeth as they slowly press down on Luffy's hand and his Rio Haki. So it looks like the Flame Bagua is over the Bajrang gun until Luffy pulls out something new. That is interesting as all hell. It shows you the power of the Flame Bagua, which is absurd. Kaido is done for character. Moving on to Momonosuke-kun. Momonosuke is able to make a large ring of flame clouds and move out away at the right time. So congratulations to Momonosuke. It was a long time coming, without a doubt. After Momo, real quick, is the random CP0 agent guy. Now we know he has Skywalk, he has Geppo. No real surprise there because it makes sense where most of these agents do have all of the Rokushiki skills. Boom. And then finally, we have Monkey, Nikadi, Luffy for character. So first things first, combat-wise. At the end of the chapter, the Monkey God gun, nay, Luffy's whole body seems to erupt in a giant fireball. And the fist that was kind of getting squished by Kaido's flaming torch Flame Bagua actually regained shape because the fire aura thing makes some sort of space and barrier between the Kaido attack, the Flame Bagua, and the Monkey God gun. Matter of fact, even the entire jawline of the Flame Dragon Torch actually gets like ripped apart because of the sheer power and the force of this fire form that Luffy has. And when Luffy makes contact with Kaido, Kaido's left horn seems to disintegrate and the sky is illuminated with a very bright light. The force of the attack is so powerful, it sends Kaido packing through the ground, and Kaido is continuously getting buried, as what I think are his last thoughts going through his mind. So sending someone as large as Kaido, number one, with the punch flying at that extremely fast speed through the ground is extremely impressive. Because Kaido is huge in terms of size. Like, reference here, 970, during the Oden flashback, we see Kaido just chilling and coiling on a mountain as he's talking to Oden. So, punching Kaido down that fast, that hard, as he continues to get buried is extremely impressive. That's the first thing. The second thing is that the new addition to Luffy's Monkey God gun does not seem to be Haki related, since we got that before in the previous chapter where he was putting the Rio Haki on his fist to make sure that he wouldn't get burned by Kaido's new flaming torch form. And then we see Conqueror's Haki sparks for the entirety of this tug of war in the Sky Squid Game style. So Conqueror's Haki is already being used, as well as Rio Haki, So where the hell is this gigantic fireball coming from? And I think what I've been saying before, like for example, in my Mystic 5 that I did last month in April, I think these things are coming to pass here. Where the final attack that Luffy has done to Kaido has been a flame attack of some kind. And what's even crazier is the fact that Kaido's flaming dragon torch form is extraordinarily hot. Some would say it's a magma form, allegedly magma form. I don't think so, but let's wait and see. But Luffy's fire is actually hotter. If Luffy could disintegrate Kaido's horn as he blasts through Kaido's flaming dragon torch state, which was already so hot, just by contact of the horn, it was melting the horn, then Luffy is outputting a temperature that is insanely hot. So Luffy right now might be, in terms of sheer temperature and potency, the hottest person in the entire One Piece story. And this is kind of fitting, I suppose, considering how he has the sun god Nika mythical Zoan ability. And we saw in 1045 where he was running on the sky, but there was a flaming track behind him or underneath him. The fire of the Nika, I think, is relatively important here, that Luffy hasn't even tapped into until this moment against Kaido, and the results are stunning. And it is symbolic too, because he's defeating Kaido not in some giant punch. No, he's defeating Kaido in a giant flaming punch of some kind. And remember, the person who wanted to defeat Kaido the most before Luffy was Ace. So this is the Hiken of the monkey god, something to that effect. And then finally, for character, last thing for Luffy here. Luffy's world that he wanted to create has both implications for Wano country and the story as a whole, obviously. Where for Wano, it's hand in hand with the freeing of the borders of Wano and its people, and of course, the promise to Tama, where Tama was not eating that well at all. She was consuming contaminated water, which made her sick, and the rice that she gave to him was, I believe, for her birthday, just showing you how impoverished she was and things like that. Where we've seen it in Okobore Town time and time again, people drinking clean water is a delicacy, things of that nature. So the promise that he made to her in Act 1, he is once again reaffirming that in this moment against Kaido. And for the story as a whole, a few things here can be noted too. Like, for example, we know for a fact that the world government has the heavily taxes on the people, the heavily tribute, I should say. And Luffy does want to be the freest person. Again, him being Pirate King is the freest person among all the seas. Therefore, we can't be paying these heavenly tributes. And as a result, people across the world can eat what they want to eat and not have to be under the thumb of the Tenryubito and the Gorosei of the world government here. Also, I think for Luffy's final dream, like the last part of his dream, like I said in the video I did at the beginning of last year, 2021, about Luffy's hidden dream, I believe that Luffy does want to have a global party with everyone across the world. And believe you me, the Straw Hats will be eating good, very well during that global party. And that is it when it comes to the character component for this chapter. Kaido takes the lion's share, and it's pretty obvious why. And then finally, we have the story component for this chapter. Number 1, CP0 exit stage left, they're gone. Now keep in mind this, there are world government ships nearby, so he's probably going to run towards those ships. Though to be fair, Zunisha is just there. His nice and white, pretty expensive pants are gonna turn brown real quickly. That's the first thing. Second thing, the waters have finally quenched the fires of most of Onigashima. This also accelerated the flame clouds disappearing since the waters caused them to vanish and extinguish. Number 3, Momonosuke is able to move Onigashima out of the way finally. Number 4 is that Kaido is sent to the depths of hell after Luffy again seemingly awakens something new, And then he sends Kaido packing with this new flaming punch. And then number 5, which is a big thing for the story here, not only is Kaido seemingly defeated here, but again, we can't confirm that just yet. He is probably defeated, but we don't know. So I cannot give this package a nice bow on top of it. Not yet, at least. But Onigashima falling to the ground safely near the Flower Capital is a major stride forward in this arc of Wano Country. One of the main perilous dangers of the arc has been taken care of. That's done. And once again, no one in the Flower Capital notices anything that's going on here. So thematically, it is a play on Oda's part to keep it that way, even though we do see in like very small panels, there is a huge explosion as a result of Luffy punching Kaido into the depths of hell. But again, no one seems to notice nothing. And there is no all room to snuff out the explosion. So, whatever. It is what is there. Just stomp, trot, the folks are cheering, having a good time. So overall, final thoughts on the chapter. The flashback is where I think things annoy me. And also, the finale I thought would be a lot more grandiose. But we are getting there, I think, because Kaido keeps on falling down. So the aftershock of Luffy's punch of the Bajran gun is going to probably be very, very intense. However, right now, Kaido getting punched to the ground and just sinking, I did want a little bit more. But again, we're getting there. We're getting there. So I have to wait and be patient here for 2 weeks. Oh, that is lovely, Oda. Thank you. Thank you very much. The flashback, again, I think is oddly weird, and I don't like Oda actually walking on eggshells where he was. But again, it's for the greater good of the story in Oda's mind, because when Rocks pulls up, if he's actually alive, or Big Mom in the future, we'll get more details on the Rocks pirate stuff, and we'll get more of Kaido's character being developed then. But right now in real time, it is a sacrifice. And then also things like, for example, he hasn't seen Momonosuke in human form yet. That hasn't happened. It hasn't happened yet. Or another bit was the Oni stuff, where Kaido talks about how Oni shouldn't befriend humans to Yamato during their fight, and there's nothing in the flashback that pertains to Onis. If his parents named him Joy Boy, Strong Kid, that's like some pivotal content. So maybe it's coming soon. Maybe Kaido actually isn't done, and we get more Kaido flashback material soon to come. And then maybe in, let's say, Act 4, let's say Kaido is properly executed. Maybe that's when we do see Kaido actually see Momonosuke aged up and he looks like Odin. Something like that. Who knows? But either way, there are certain things in this chapter that I thought were very intriguing, very interesting. But I think it was clear that Oda did intend for a lot of hype in this chapter, because Kaido is seemingly defeated here. I just wasn't, nah. Like when it comes to hype value, for me, wasn't doing it. But again, I can infer a lot of different things here that I think are very important. So overall, this chapter I think is a good chapter. I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. That is a good chapter of One Piece.